All right, thanks Nella for joining me. I can't believe it's been 5 years. Yeah, 5 years my kids have been coming here, and they've always had a blast. It doesn't really feel like, it doesn't feel like a business relationship. It's just like a family, a community.
Awesome.
Concerts are always a blast. And when I was thinking of, okay, what kind of questions can I ask, Nella, and how they set up BackBeat and whatnot, I was looking at, the amount of music schools that were out there, but the one number that totally blew my mind was, even just for Canada, there's like the average household spending $1,000 per kid on after-school activities, and I thought, man, even if like half the population spent that, there's a pretty good market for just after-school music. So I'm curious, when you guys were coming up with the concept, obviously you can see behind us, this is not a typical music school. What were some of the things that were kind of going through your mind around, what could we do to maybe make this different, fun experience, and just kind of, I guess kind of that marketing idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We knew we wanted to stand out, and that we wanted to be bright and bold in kind of the concept and what we were doing. And a big thing is just have fun, and not being too starchy and stiff, and saying that this has to be something where you sit down and you're proper, and you're, it's perfection should be achieved after like your second try or that kind of a thing. But we wanted to be a space that was somewhere where you could walk in and feel like, okay, I feel welcome, I feel safe, I feel like this is a place where I can take a risk and I can make a mistake, and I can really put myself out there and then see what happens. And by doing that, we know that kids are they're going to grow, they're going to do their best learning, and the confidence piece, that's a huge thing. And so just creating that environment that feels different the minute you come in, something that feels personal. We really wanted to create that community. We like to say we connect with you. So when you walk through that front door, where it's not just again like, welcome, please take a seat, we'll be with you shortly, but where it really is that we know your name, and we're just going to keep things casual. Or like even when kids sometimes come in and they have to do a little trial jam to get into a rock band, just to see where they're at and stuff, just being able to feel at ease. And it's not about trying to prove something or be of a certain status, but it's just like, we're just going to make music. We're going to see where you're at, because we want the right fit for you. And so that level of comfort is really important, and connection, and having fun. And so just kind of seeing what was in Edmonton at the time, there were definitely music schools that were doing rock bands and rock band programs, but nobody that had built their identity around that and had really jumped in with both feet. And sometimes we joke now, being I guess we're 8 years in, we're like, oh, we know why, because they're so hard. But even in how we've structured our team so that we're able to train our staff and really work with, so that they can speak to all 5 instruments in the room and manage that dynamic, and be able to push those kids that, you might have 5 different musicians at 5 different levels with 5 different backgrounds, but in an hour you have to bring them together around Led Zeppelin. And being able to do that well was something we had to jump in and have. We have, I think right now, 15 or 16 different bands, and that number continues to grow. And so doing that was different, and collaborating is different. Like even when we do our private music lesson students, they're collaborating, they're making music together. Our rooms are, say it's a horrible business decision that our rooms are a bit bigger, so we're paying for that square footage, but it's because it's not just going to be a teacher and a student. It's going to be somebody coming in with a guitar, and then they're going to bring a couple other instruments in there, and we're going to jam, and we're going to just experiment a little bit. And so we had to build a space that allowed us to do that, because we think that's a fun and a great way to learn.
Yeah, what's really interesting too is, it's happened to me quite a few times where I've come in with my kid, or I'm picking up my kid, and I've run into another parent. I was like, oh, is your son or daughter here? They're like, no, I'm here. And so I'm curious, cool. Like when you guys were looking at, okay, this is kind of the target market, or who we want to bring in, was it, really all ages and every kind of demographic, or were you saying, this is for kids?
Yeah, we were pretty specific. As we actually said, it was the junior high, and we even went so far around junior high boy. Just because it was something where we wanted to know who we were building the business to target. And I would say even now when we look at our stats, we're really split on the gender, which is awesome. But say between like 8 to 14 is where we have majority of our students from, and then that also spreads out. So now we have like everything down to the 3-year-old like Little Beats program, and then we do have adult students, which is awesome. It's just kids are in a routine. Kids are ready to make that ongoing commitment, and their parents are. It seems easier almost for them to enforce that in their child than, I mean, adults, we have so many competing priorities and stuff. Right. So yeah, we just, and I think it was again just around the level of energy that we wanted to have around BackBeat was really something that spoke to that. We'd say like the junior high kid who was burnt out of maybe doing the traditional music lessons that they had been doing for a while, and you know, they went because they had to, and they just need to fall in love with music again, because music is incredible, as many of us would agree, but it's sometimes the way that we're forced to learn it is just something that few of us actually resonate with. It's just what we've been forced to do for so long, and so we kind of like to just help kids to break that mold apart again and just realize that beneath all that there's still this awesome, incredible skill and an instrument or their voice that they can learn and have fun with. And then it's always the redemption story is when they'll go back to their classical music after a few years, because now they love it and they want to pursue that avenue or not. So it's really cool. So yeah, so I would say we were pretty specific in that, just in that we want to know who you're building the business for, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know one question we were talking about earlier, and you were like, well, you know, social media, it's not really something where, you know, we think we're really strong on. But I guess I'm curious, when you started, you know, I'm guessing there was a lot of word of mouth, maybe we'll call it traditional advertising, but would you say, you know, how you've either had to or how you use it, you know, is changing? Or, I mean, I know you guys post photos from, you know, some of the concerts and whatnot on Instagram, but, you know, is it something that you see, you know, let's say in the next year as being something you got to spend more time with, or is it just almost like a nice to have?
No, I think it's really important, especially, I mean, for us, when you look at our demographic, the age of our parents as well as the age of our kids, everybody's on social media. I think it's just a thing where it's been like known, it's something we should do, and we don't, and then I'm like, but I think like when we first started, like it seemed like a lot of Facebook, everything was on Facebook. And I think for us, a lot of our parents still are on Facebook. Our kids are not, definitely not. But so things have gone more towards Instagram, but I think there's even like some of the other social media channels that you were mentioning. I'm like, I haven't even heard of those. Snapchat I've heard of, but TikTok, I have no idea. I'm like, so yeah, we probably need to continue to evolve. I think one of the things that is just, I really like about social media is that it gives you a chance to show that personality behind the business and behind the scenes, and what people might not see in a glossy brochure, you can show in a story or something like that. That just personifies the business a bit more. But it's just around, finding time and everything to do that. But it is nice, because if we're going to do a digital media buy, it's not like just putting it on a big billboard and hoping the right people drive by. You can target exactly who's going to see it, and then you can see click-through rates and stuff. So again, it doesn't feel like a black hole as much. You're actually going to see the traffic, or you know, this image versus another. You can do some A/B testing and those things. So it certainly is. It's like, of all the things to spend and invest our time in beyond our shows, you really haven't done a ton of marketing, which we're trying to just think about what that looks like now. The other thing too is working with influencers, versus like sort of seeing how that influencer endorsement versus a paid ad does has been interesting too. And so, and I'm like the baby of trying to figure out all of that, but it's interesting just to figure out that whole world.
Interesting. So speaking of like competing time, my last question is really around the question I often ask all the entrepreneurs that I'm talking to is, you know, what tips would you have, or if you went kind of back, you know, time management I often hear is like, okay, like prioritizing, juggling all this, like any things, I guess maybe you would do differently, or advice you would give to people, and just trying to keep everything under, you know, control.
How to not go crazy? You say drinking? Is that okay? Is that acceptable? I think like one of the things that's kept us doing this is just like how much we love what is at the heart of what we do, and how much you know, every student that's walking through our doors, and I feel like it easily falls prey to just like lip service or being like, we love our kids, but we just care so much about their success, and not even like musically, we just want them to like rock life. And the fact that we see that happening, We often joke that like lease renewal time is when you really evaluate whether or not to like keep going with your business, and we're like, we have to keep going, and I've said, I'm like, it's because the world needs more BackBeat. Like it needs more venues that are just pushing kids to go and put themselves out there so they realize how incredible they are, and then do that in more spaces. And if they can like understand that at 8, then when they're 18 and when they're 28, like it's just, the world has so much to benefit from these kids. And so I think connecting with that passion and just remembering why we do what we do, and then also knowing like between my husband and I as the 2 co-founders of what like the actual roles that we do in the business, and being able to keep focused, because it's so easy like to be like squirrel and you know, you're off to another project, but to say that this is going to be the big thing that we're going to tackle now, and everything else might be good but it's not as most important, and this is what you're going to do in it, and this is what I'm going to do in it, and everybody focus, and we're going to bring the team around this. And then after 3 months to 8 months to a year, once that's done, then we can all shift gears to the next one, versus trying to sort of do a half decent job at a little bit of everything.
Totally.
And so, yeah, and having fun in the business, like laughter is great medicine, and just remembering that it's, you know, we're not doing brain surgery, we're having a lot of fun making and teaching kids music, and just taking that time. And and I've had some professors bug me because I took my MBA from the U of A, and we closed down pretty much in August, and just, you know, basically I say bleed cash, but it's so we can get away and take a break, because if the business is running, there's just always going to be something that comes through and we can't mentally shut off. So for 2 weeks we'll go and we'll explore a big city somewhere or something, and it's just so good for us to recharge, and then the investment that we get back, or the return we get back on that investment, comes back in spades. So being able just to force yourself, and for us we have to physically remove ourselves from the city to do that, and so that really helps us too with just being able to keep doing this again, because you come back charged up and ready to go.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you making time. I know I'll be back every month, every year, because my kids, they come here and they love it. Like there's no dragging them, and so awesome. I love what you guys are doing, and thanks for your time.
Awesome.
Thanks all. Cheers.